What was here before America? 1,000 years ago, the largest city north of Mexico stood on this river, bigger than London. A ruin 300 years before Columbus ever arrived. The land was never empty. It was full, coast to coast, with hundreds of nations. And yet, in just over 100 years, one thin strip of 13 colonies on the edge of it would swallow the entire continent. This is how they did it. England's America began as a business. Jamestown, 1607, founded by a company chasing profit, and in 1619 the first enslaved Africans were sold at its shore. Hold on to that. The map comes back to it. Because by 1750 the colonies were trapped. France claimed the entire heart of the continent, all of it, with a single canoe trip down the Mississippi. Spain held the south and the far west, 13 colonies, a coastal ribbon pinned against the sea. Then, in 1763, France lost a world war and handed the eastern half to Britain. The cage door opened, and the ribbon was about to break out. But Britain had won that war with borrowed money, and it sent the bill to the colonies. Stamps, tea, and taxes they never voted for. So in 1776, in a brick hall in Philadelphia, they did something no colony had ever done. They declared themselves a country. Britain sent the most powerful army on earth to crush them. What followed was 8 years of war, led by a Virginia planter named George Washington, who lost more battles than he won, but kept his ragged army alive long enough for it to matter. And then France, still bitter from its own defeat, threw its fleet and its soldiers behind the rebellion purely to wound Britain. It worked. At Yorktown in 1781, a British army was trapped between Washington on land and the French Navy at sea, and surrendered. 2 years later, Britain signed it all away. Everything from the coast to the Mississippi River. The 13 colonies had asked for independence and won a country larger than France, Spain, and Britain combined. Now they had to hold it together. And at first, they couldn't. The young nation nearly fell apart. 13 states barely cooperating, no real government, no money, drifting toward collapse within a few years of winning. So in the summer of 1787, they returned to that same hall in Philadelphia and wrote a new set of rules from scratch. The Constitution. It built a single national government strong enough to hold the states together, and it is still the one they use today. And in the same breath, they invented the thing that would build the rest of this map. A rule that new land would not be ruled as colonies, but surveyed, settled, and admitted as full states, equal to the first 13. Territory in one end, states out the other. No empire in history had ever offered that. All the machine needed now was land. It came in 1803 from a dictator an ocean away. Napoleon wanted a French empire in America, but it depended on one island, Haiti. And Haiti's enslaved people had risen up and destroyed the army he sent to hold it. No island, no empire. So he offered the young United States, which had come to buy a single city, all of Louisiana instead. 800,000 square miles, $15 million, under 3 cents an acre. In one signature, the country doubled. Nobody even knew what was out there, so an expedition walked it to the Pacific, guided by a Shoshone woman named Sacagawea, and came home with a map that had no borders on it. Just the rivers and the nations already there. Now the machine turned west, and it was hungry. Florida pried from Spain in 1819. Then the whole south of the map changed color. In 1821, Mexico won its own independence from Spain and inherited everything from Texas to California. But American settlers pouring into Texas revolted, lost a famous last stand at the Alamo, won anyway, and after 9 years as their own country, joined the United States. It triggered a war with Mexico, and in 1848, Mexico lost half its territory in a single treaty, California and everything between it and Texas. The same year, a deal with Britain drew the northern border dead straight along the 49th parallel. And 9 days before the Mexican treaty was even signed, gold was found in California. 90,000 people raced to a coast that had been Mexican the year before. In 70 years, a coastal ribbon had become a nation touching 2 oceans. But every new state was cut from someone else's ground, and the map beneath the map was shrinking. In 1830, Congress ordered the nations of the Southeast marched west. Around 16,000 Cherokee were removed in the winter of 1838, and an estimated 4,000 died on the way, on a road their language remembers as the trail where they cried. Every bright fill on this map covers an older one. Keep your eye on that shrinking land. It comes back. Because the machine kept making states, and each one forced the same question. Slave or free? For 30 years they held it off with a line drawn straight across the country. Slavery below it, freedom above. Until the line snapped and settlers poured into Kansas to decide it with rifles. Then, in 1861, the map did the one thing it was never built to do. It broke in half. That cargo from 1619 had become 4 million enslaved people, and the country tore itself apart over whether slavery would spread into all that new western land. For 4 years, there were 2 maps. It became the deadliest war in American history, more Americans killed than in any war before or since. In the middle of it, Lincoln turned the fight into the end of slavery itself. And in 1865, the Union armies closed the map from every side, the Confederacy surrendered at a Virginia farmhouse, and 4 million people were free. The Union survived. The border that had split the country vanished, without a single line on the map ever moving. Then the machine went back to work. It bought Alaska from Russia for 2 cents an acre, and the newspapers laughed until the gold and the oil turned up. A golden spike joined the 2 coasts by rail. In Oklahoma, land was opened by starting gun, 50,000 people racing for farms, whole cities standing by sunset where there had been open prairie at dawn. And in 1890, that shrinking land on the map beneath the map reached its end. The same winter, the government declared the frontier closed. Soldiers killed hundreds of Lakota at a creek called Wounded Knee. The oldest story on this map, and the newest one, ended in the same season. The continent was full. America tried overseas empire once, in 1898, but the machine refused to turn distant islands into states, which is exactly why the count stopped where it did. One by one, the last territories became the last stars. Arizona, in 1912. And then together, in 1959 and 60, Alaska and Hawaii. 50 states. The machine had finally run out of continent. So what was here before America? Fly to St. Louis, and you can see the whole answer in one view. On one bank, a steel arch, the gateway to the west. 8 miles east, a mound of earth older than the arch, older than the states, older than the flag, still standing where a lost city raised it 1,000 years ago. The map never started empty. 13 colonies just filled it in, 1 state at a time, until there were 50. If you want to watch a map become a country, we draw a new one every week. Subscribe and tell me in the comments which country we should build next.